All right, from the Dick's Sporting Goods parking lot, you can't see it, it's over there. I found this paper in my room in my parents' house. I think this is from when I took a road trip from Nebraska to WinStar, picked up my Kansas friend in Kansas on the way down, and we played WinStar for 2 days. I was thinking of things to do on the road, because once I pick him up, it's like 4 hours down to WinStar. So I printed out some hand histories from February 2016. Thought maybe we would discuss some hand histories. Also brought Gushers. Thought maybe we would eat Gushers. We did none of those things. I think we just talked about college football most of the way. But somehow that paper survived my tenure in Nebraska and made it back to New York when I went back there during the Corona shutdown and found that paper fairly recently. So I thought I'd go over 2 awesome bluffs I ran back in the day. One was at Bellagio, one was at Aria. Let's get to the one at Bellagio. Pre-flop action.
All right, enjoy the background from this table at Philadelphia Live, and here we go, pre-flop action. I had ace-5 of spades. After several limps, I limped also, over-limped, 6 players went to the flop.
Yeah, could be a good play, could not be a good play. There was a stretch, I mean, there have been many stretches. There have been stretches where a hand like ace-5 suited over limps, I've folded. There have been stretches where I've called. There have been stretches where I've raised. During this time, I was calling with them, which there's some value to calling. You know, if you ever hit flush to flush, you have the ace, you're ahead. Ever hit trip 5s versus trip 5s, you have the ace kicker, you're ahead. So you're winning big pots that way, although the frequency is low, but the severity is high. So I overlimped this one. Now let's get to the flop.
All right, here's where I left you off, and what happened next. Flop, ace of hearts, 6 of hearts, 4 of spades. I have a pair of aces, 2 backdoor draws. There were several checks, and then a guy with headphones around his neck bet $12. I called a woman who seemed very new to poker. She had checked when it was on her early, and then when it got back to her, she check called from the big blind. 3 of us going to the turn.
Yeah, so this is the type of flop that would hit a lot. You wouldn't really just smash trip 5s or like aces full of 5s or something like that. You would usually hit an ace or a 5. You would hit a pair and not really know where you are. So couldn't fold. You know, I have 2 backdoor draws and I have a pair of aces. Not that I really ever count on backdoor draws hitting, but they exist. And I have an ace, can't fold. I didn't love it because, for one, this guy didn't strike me as someone who would be betting draws, and he also didn't strike me as someone who would bet a draw 6 ways. Like, yeah, it's great if he has hearts, because I could beat that. Or if he has, you know, an open-ended straight draw, I could beat that. But, like, what's your goal with 5 other people in the hand? Do you really expect all 5 to fold on the flop? There are some maniacs who will bet draws, not even intending on getting folds, just hoping the pot gets bigger, and then when they hit on the turn or the river, they have a much bigger pot to bet into. But those players are usually like really wild. This guy wasn't like that, so I thought he would often have an ace or 2 pair, like pretty much hands better than me, not too often a hand worse than me, but it was a small enough bet and I had too much of the board to fold, so I called. We went 3 ways to the turn.
All right, left you off here. What was the turn card? Very interesting turn card. Ace of diamonds on the turn. What was the turn action? Before I get to the thoughts, that woman checked. The guy with the headphones bet again, $22. I called, and the woman folded when it got back to her. So I'm heads up with this guy with the headphones going to the river.
It's an interesting card on the turn that doesn't really improve me. So the only thing I was not beating on the flop that I am beating now is 6-4. 6-4 has a really bad 2 pair and I have trips. But an ace with a better kicker, I'm still losing. A set of 6s or a set of 4s, I'm losing trips to both. Like, I'm just, it improved me in absolute terms. It did not improve me in relative terms. But still, it's like a fairly small bet and I have trips, like I can't fold. But I did have a plan going to the river. You know, if a 6 hits, probably chopping. He probably has an ace. If a 4 hits, probably chopping when he has an ace. And if I hit a 5, I could win a big pot. Also still thought I could rep hearts. I thought the whole way I could rep hearts. Since I didn't think he had hearts, I was fairly concerned that the woman in the hand who hung on for the flop bet but got out of the way on the turn, she could have hearts. I mean, what's stopping her? But now she's out of the hand. So I thought it made a lot more sense for me to have hearts. He would be scared of it if a heart hit and I bet hard. And I didn't think he was betting with a draw really at all, especially with 5 other players on the flop. So a heart was my big way to win the hand on the river without showdown. The 5 is my way to win a big pot on the river at showdown. And if he has an ace, I have some chop outs with the sixes and the fours, and also a few more. You know, if a king hits and he has ace two, well then, I mean, I was ahead, but then we're chopping. You know, trip aces, king kicker on board, six kicker on board. So there are some ways out of this, some ways something good could happen on the river.
Okay, pray tell, what was the river card? River card completed that flush. Queen of hearts on the river, and this is how the action started. The guy bet $35, then it was on me.
So that $35 bet, which is fairly small, you know, he went 12, 22, 35. He's not really increasing his sizing. In combination with the heart, I loved it. Because it's like, he's had the lead the whole way. He's still betting. It looked like he had trip aces. And like, he's still going to bet even though he doesn't love the hearts. And he was thinking the whole way, like, I have hearts. And like, please, river, don't be a heart. Things like that. So it was a great river card for me to win without showdown, and it was a sizing that to me indicated weakness. So it was a great card to put my plan into action and put a big raise in, try to rep the flush and get him to fold trip aces.
All right, what did I do? I followed through with that hand of repping the hearts. I made it 100 more, raised to 135. He didn't think for that long. He said, "You really got it, huh?" And then he folded face up, and he showed that he had jack seven of hearts, the jack high flush. He gave it up.
Hilarious that he had the jack high flush. First of all, if I had x-ray vision and saw his cards and saw he had the jack high flush, I would not have tried to get him to fold. It would have worked like it did, but I would not have tried that. I thought he had trip aces, and like, he didn't even have a good kicker, even though his kicker was probably playing, like if he has ace seven, his kicker is in play. Trip aces, queen on board, the seven in his hand beats the six on board, but I would not have tried to get him to fold that. But this was interesting because this like led me to later in the year playing like really wild and basically trying to get anyone to fold anything, because this was a stretch in Vegas that was really, really tight. I was used to Wisconsin a few years before this where it was really, really loose, and this was the opposite. And lately it's not quite as tight, but at the time, like 2015, 16, early 17, things were this tight. So what was funny, someone I knew in Wisconsin, I told him this hand, and he said if he had the jack high flush himself and he saw the other guy's cards and he saw that the other guy had the 10 high flush, he would have raised bigger expecting the 10 high flush to call, and I got a higher flush to fold without trying. But it was, so the poor read was the flop, that this guy was willing to bet hearts, and he was also doing it six ways, which don't really understand what he was going for on the flop if he really thought like 5 people might fold. It's also really weird to bet the jack high flush on the flop because there's like, it was a limped pot. There's absolutely nothing stopping anyone from having queen x of hearts or king x of hearts. He might not even have the best heart draw, so he might be betting with it hoping for a heart to save him, and then he loses his entire stack. I mean, we see on the river the queen of hearts hit, so no one could have had the queen of hearts in his or her hand, but anyone, you don't know that on the flop, and anyone could have had king x of hearts. But yeah, it was, I guess, kind of a good read for like the wrong reasons. That river bet, I guess, was weakness. He probably didn't like the fact that he only had the jack. You know, he loses to any boat. He also loses to king x of hearts. And when he said, like, "Do you really got it?" or whatever he said, I think he was referencing a boat. I don't think he was putting me on exactly king x of hearts, but yeah, it was weakness in that smaller bet on the river, and I raised and he folded. So interesting hand. Didn't expect him to show, didn't expect him to have jack x of hearts, but he did.
And remember, rice is a spoon food.